I've always believed in the spiritual world, and I've also always feared it. However, the more I fear it, the stronger it draws me to it. I'm also like that with my fear of heights and water. I just like to live dangerously. I'm an experienced Ouija board user now, but when I first started to use it, I didn't know the rules. For example, never use the Ouija board alone. This may lead to possession such as the famous one in The Exorcist, which is based on a true demon possession. Never give it the power to enter into your world through the Ouija board portal. Alas, I'd broken the second rule and did not realize the consequences. Me and a couple of my friends moved into an apartment together, 3-bedroom. One day, I was telling my friends about the fun Ouija board experiences I had, and they refused to believe me. So the next day, I went out and bought one, and we decided to give it a try that night. I told everyone to meditate and to pray or focus their minds to be clear. I then took turns in pairs, using the Ouija because I knew that spirits sometimes were fickle about who they were communicating with. For example, I seldomly get a response directly on the Ouija board, and it's usually my friends that have to operate the board. However, I'm the one who's usually asking questions to make sure that no one is fooling around on it and making up answers. Anyway, we were asking some questions about lost items and funny stuff, and we were talking to a child ghost age 5 with blonde hair and a red shirt with blue overalls. Eventually, it asked if it could come play with us. I said yes at the time, not knowing I had given it power into the physical world. When we were done, I put it in the closet. My girlfriend was sleeping over one night, and while I was in the shower, she began screaming, so I ran out dripping wet and naked and asked her what was wrong. She was crying and hysterical and telling me that she saw a pair of red eyes staring at her from the closet and a demonic laughing coming from there. When I looked, I didn't see anything, nor did I sense anything except for my adrenaline from hearing her scream. I went to the closet to throw away the Ouija board, knowing that was the same cause of the problem. However, when I went to reach for the board, all of a sudden, I felt my arm dripping into something I can only call a bucket of water floating in midair. Nothing was there physically, mind you. It just felt like I had dipped my hand in a bucket of cold water and my arm was all tingly. I didn't sense any presence besides the physical sensations, so I quickly tore up the board with my hands and began to meditate to build up positive energy in the room. After a while, she calmed down and went to sleep. I was still creeped out, however, so I turned on the TV that's in my room and began to watch. All of a sudden, she sat up and pointed at the closed bedroom door, which was closed, and told the emptiness to go away. Then she put her head down and went right back to sleep. Curious, I woke her and asked her if she remembered her dream. She looked happily at me and mumbled that a little kid had been running in and out of the door saying, "I'm gonna get you," every time he ran in and out. I told her that the bedroom door was closed the whole night. At this point, she seemed confused and said that it was open and that while I was watching TV, a child had kept coming in and out. I asked her to describe the child, thinking maybe it was the same spirit from the board. Keep in mind, she didn't know anything about me having a Ouija board or even using it with my friends. She described to me a little blonde boy in a red shirt and blue overalls. This of course creeped me out even more, and I told her about what happened with the Ouija board. A few months later at a party I was having in my apartment, I told a few of my friends about what happened, and they decided they wanted to try it out. So again, we went to Toys R Us and bought another Parker Ouija board. We played it again, and ended up talking to the same child. This time, I just kinda watched. Some of my friends said that they could feel something sitting in their laps or touching their arms from time to time. The next day my friend called me and said that he had a bad dream and that he woke up with his pillow very bloody from a nosebleed. Needless to say, my friends thought it was perhaps the Ouija board, so we gathered together to ask it what happened. It said that it had done it, and that it would continue to do so with each person for 2 weeks at a time. We freaked out, and I told it if it could stop, and it agreed to stop. The next day, my friend called me again and told me that the same thing happened, so we got together and we burned the Ouija board. After that, nothing else happened, and I never touched another Ouija board again. However, again, like I said, I'm into being dangerous, so I'm up for another go if anyone lives near or close around the area and wants to try it together. Now, this is going way back, but it is a story I've told my children on many occasions. When I was about 12 years old, a friend of mine and I had set up a Ouija he had gotten for Christmas in his basement when his parents were out and thought we could have a bit of fun with each other. As kids often do, we would ask questions and force the heart around, ask questions, kick the table, and try to freak each other out. How's the best way to put this? A while into it, we heard a rapping sound on his basement window. It hit a couple times, and then, from what he and I remember, 3 more, hard. Scared the crap out of us, and we ran upstairs. After we settled down, we started doing what most would do, and tried to figure out what happened. The idea we finally came to was that a friend of ours had seen us through the window, and thought that he would have a little fun of his own. Now it was our turn to scare him. We went out the front door and snuck around the side of the house. Then, and it still, after all the years, sends chills down my spine. We saw nothing. No one. That in itself scared us more, for it had been snowing and there was no tracks along the side of the house or anywhere around the window the noises came from. It could have not been more than 5 minutes from the time we ran from the basement until we went outside. The snow was fresh. We asked our friend if he had been around the night before, without telling him what happened, and he said he had not. Last time my friend, who is now my brother-in-law, and I have messed with a Ouija board. You can call us crazy and paranoid. We don't really care. Hello. I would like to first thank you for giving me the opportunity to have my true story posted. It took place about 10 years ago at my friend's house in Medford, Massachusetts. We both decided at the time to write it out so we don't forget any of it, but I don't think we will ever forget it. Hope you get the same chill I get every time I tell it to someone. On a cold December night, a few days before Christmas, I went to my best friend's house to stay over the night, have a few drinks, and give him his Christmas gift. Paul's wife was away visiting relatives, so he was home with his 6-year-old son Patrick, who was already asleep. Paul lived in a 2-story rental with the landlord living upstairs. When I arrived, he met me at the door with his signature drink in hand. We settled into the living room by the Christmas tree, all covered in blue and white lights. It cast long shadows around the darkened room. By now, we had a few drinks in us as we got caught up in a little music in the background. It was about that time that I reached into a brown shopping bag and pulled out Paul's gift, a long flat box wrapped in green paper. He laughed and said, "I guess it's not a bottle." He quickly unwrapped the gift to find the original Ouija board. He said he always wanted one and opened it. No time like the present. We joked a bit how the Milton Bradley people were the first to come out with the whole chat with the dead home kit. We scanned the directions and began, board on our knees between us, fingertips resting slightly on the pointer. The trick, it seemed, was to put no pressure on the pointer, just barely touching it. We sat for a while, waiting for something to happen, asking dumb questions, all the usual skeptical stuff. But slowly, the pointer began to move. A slow circle in the center of the board. It was so smooth, it was unlikely that Paul could do it unless I was working with him to do it. After about 2 rotations, I pulled my hands away and asked Paul, "How are you doing that?" He stated that he was going to ask the same thing. After a discussion on how hard someone was going to get beaten if they were screwing around with the other, we placed our fingers back in position. Almost immediately, the pointer began to move back in its familiar clockwise circle. Paul began to ask some simple questions. At first, no replies, but then, "Is there someone here with us?" The pointer moved to yes, then spun off, now moving counterclockwise. It seemed to wait for the next question. Paul asked, "Can you hurt us?" No, it answered. Not much relief in that answer. We were both very spooked badly by this point. I found it odd that after each answer, the pointer would change its direction, and much too smooth and fast for Paul to have any control of it. Next question, "What is your name?" The pointer moved to D, then P. We asked again, but got the same reply. We moved on. Paul, feeling a little more gutsy, I guess asked, "Can you see us?" The answer came yes. "Can we see you?" No. I then asked why not. The visitor spelled out one letter at a time. D, E, A, D. It was as though neither of us saw that answer coming. It sent a cold chill through us both, and our hands shot away from the board. It took a few minutes of nervous chatter and laughing to get past that one, but somehow, we both knew we were just getting started. We moved back to the board and placed our fingertips back. It jumped to life as though it was waiting for us to return. We continued asking away. "Did you live in this house?" No. "How old were you?" It seemed to struggle with that, so we asked, "Were you young?" It replied yes. "Did you like it here?" Yes was the reply. Spelling seemed difficult, so we thought that whoever it was may have been too young to spell or had not gone to school. We tried to keep yes and no answers, and this seemed to work better. We asked if it was a boy. No. Girl? Yes. Went back to how old. The pointer hung up between 6 and 7. The questions continued, but the answers were few. It was as if DP grew weary of this game. Paul and I put the board away and discussed the information we had to work with. There was a knock at the front door, and our friend Kevin was in the area and stopped in to say hello. While we stood by the door filling him in on what had gone on, we all heard a distinct bell, like an old-fashioned alarm clock, chime just once. It was loud enough to startle us in our already jumpy condition, and Paul quickly said, "What the hell was that?" Kevin said it was an alarm clock. Paul stated that there are none in the house that have a bell. It seemed to come from halfway up the stairs to Patrick's room. Very strange indeed. Kevin had it out, and Paul and I decided it was time to call it a night. After very little sleep the next morning, Patrick came bouncing down the stairs and settled in with the TV. Paul followed him into the room soon after and just gave him a look as if to say, "Did that really happen?" Soon after, Patrick spoke up and said, "I didn't sleep good last night." Paul asked why. "Are you getting a cold?" Pat said no. "There was a girl on the wall in my room. She wanted to come play, but I was scared and I told her I wanted to sleep." A cold shiver ran through us both, and neither of us said a word. No need for Pat to get too far into this one. Later that morning, Paul's landlord was heading out, and Paul met up with him at the front door. He asked if there was ever a young kid that lived in the house that died. Lou answered no, but then stopped and said, "You know, the only kid I knew around here that died lived in the house behind this one. It was a little girl with polio, and she was always sick." He went on to say that she didn't go to school or leave the house much, but when she felt up to it, her mom would go get her and bring her over to play with him and his sisters, so she got to be with other kids. He thought he said she died when she was about 7. Paul and I both had chills by this point, but the question had to be asked, what was her name? He thought for a second and said Dorothy. Dorothy Picante. We knew we had found our visitor from last night. 4 weeks after this night, my phone at home would ring one single chime during the night. I didn't think much of it until one day, while visiting my friend Paul's house again, his phone did the same thing. Ding. He said, "You know, it's been doing that since the visit from Dorothy." I told him that the same thing was happening to my phone too. It seems she knows where we both live now. As far-fetched as this story seems, it is the absolute truth. I will never forget the visit as long as I live. I've gone back and forth for a while now, debating on whether I should submit this story. It is absolutely 100% truly something that happened to me. I am skeptical about the events though. While my friend and her mother insist that they had nothing to do with what went on, I am still up in the air about how I feel about the ghosts and spirits and whatnot. Anyway, with that disclaimer, here is my story. This story takes place when I was about 12 years old. I was on vacation with a friend of mine, we'll call her Jackie, her family, and another friend, we'll call her Madison, in Massachusetts. We were staying at Koa Campground near Boston, and one night, my friend and her mother, both intensely interested in everything paranormal, suggested that we hold a seance. I'm pretty skeptical in general when it comes to ghosts and whatnot. I'd never had a personal experience with it, didn't really believe that it was possible to speak to the dead, and felt that even if there were possible, it probably wasn't something to be messing with. Anyway, for whatever reason, being bored maybe, I agreed. So did Madison, although reluctantly. We began, lit the candles, sat around the picnic table, held hands, and cleared our minds so that we'd be more open to the spirits. It all seemed pretty hokey to me, straight out of a movie, but I was having a good time. My friend's mother began the seance, but midway through her spiel, Madison decided she had enough and broke the circle. Jackie's mother informed us that we couldn't continue once the circle has been broken because it could lead to all sorts of problems. We were sitting around after that, a little disgruntled since the fun had been ruined. Jackie decided that we should try our luck with the Ouija board instead. This, I was a little more reluctant about. I'd heard all sorts of negative things about messing with those, but being 12, I had no intention of looking scared in front of everyone. We had just teased Madden mercilessly for backing down, so I put on my brave face and agreed. We made a makeshift board out of a strip of brown paper towel, filling the letters in with a marker and using a playing card as a planchette. Starting out, we asked basic questions, trying to connect with anything at all, and not really having much luck. As we got more into things, though, we seemed to connect with a spirit named Keith. He was young, like a young adult, but could not or would not tell us his age. He began to answer only to my questions, calling me May. He would not tell us how he died, or how he knew me, or why he was calling me May. He just spelled out cold a few times. He then spelled out remember red. Things got weird after that. The planchette was all over the board after that, and the answers we started getting were nonsensical. We asked if it was still Keith. The planchette pointed to no, and spelled out bad. The planchette slid quickly across the board and across the picnic table and onto the ground. We picked it up, pointed it to goodbye, and ended the session. Jackie's mother took care of the board, and we went to bed. Now Jackie, Madison, and I were sharing a tent while Jackie's parents were in a cabin next to us. Sometime during the night, I began to feel extremely uneasy. I couldn't fall asleep. I couldn't relax, like I had too much adrenaline. I figured that I had freaked myself out too much and tried to just force myself to sleep by telling myself that I was being ridiculous. But finally, I insisted to Jackie and Madison that I was just too uncomfortable on the ground and that I'd prefer to sleep in the cabin. They agreed, and in we went. The next morning, when we woke up, our tent was flattened and flooded. To this day, I don't know if Jackie and her mom were messing with me or if the tent collapse was just a coincidence, but it definitely scared the hell out of me. I never messed with a Ouija board again, but I must say, these incidents were very convincing. I guess I just have to figure out in my own mind if this is real, or I'll find out in the next life, one way or another. Thank you so much for reading. Yesterday afternoon, Monday, August 26, 2006, I was home alone. My dad was at work sometime with my mom, and my brother was out somewhere. It was just me and my two dogs. It was about 1 p.m., or maybe a little before when this happened. The TV was on, but not loud on, and both families next door were not home or outside. I was just sitting on my couch watching TV when all of a sudden I heard a strange voice of a man say some kind of word. This was very strange because I've never heard such a strange voice before in my house. Maybe this voice was because I was using this Ouija board at the time that I found in my basement. I've heard a little girl's voice and other voices, but never a strange man's voice. The voice was coming from upstairs, so I got off the couch and said, "Is anyone there? Hello? Is anyone there?" Nothing. I heard nothing. So I went back to watching TV. Oh yeah, about a week ago, my brother told me he thinks he keeps seeing some kind of shadowy figure walk by when him and I are watching TV. Kinda creepy. Thanks for reading my short story, and I hope you have a great day. Hey guys, PhantomOfDarkness here, and I just wanted to say I hope you love these Ouija board encounter stories. I think it's awesome because obviously, the Ouija board stories in here are pretty cool to look at and just read, and also just hear from me and my narrations, but I don't know what I was going to say. I figured I was going to mess up, so I'd re-record this, but then I just, finished, so I don't know what's going on. See, that's what happens when you try to record and you intend on messing up, but you don't actually mess up. It sounds fluid and everything, but you want something else. But that doesn't mean I'm going to re-record everything on just now. No, I'm not going to do that, because I am authentic. Roar, 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 roar. I'm going to shut up now. Anyway, guys, seriously, thank you so much for being a part of this Phantom journey. I hope you liked that compilation, by the way, that I just put out a second ago. I know it's the same stories, and I honestly don't see that much value in it, but I know you guys wanted it, so I made it for you. And I'm thinking I'm probably doing another one, but after that, I don't know if I'm going to make too many compilations. Maybe I will. I don't know. We'll have to see. But not after you comment, like, share, and subscribe to this video right here, especially this video, because Ouija boards are amazing. And Pumpkin Joanne, I know you're listening. She's one of my subscribers. I know these are your favorites, so you get it. Anyway, guys, now, good night, good morning, and I'll see you in the next one. Love you guys as always.